So here's my pinch pot from our last video. I am ready to start thinking about shaping it a little bit. It still has some room to be pinched. I showed this example as a good thinness. It's about, it's a little thinner than my pinky, right? So I'd say keep your pinch pot, your pinky or thinner, and not much thinner than this because it will collapse. You can leave it a little thicker on the bottom too because the bottom is holding up the weight of the piece. So I'm going to pinch this out a little bit more, and then I am going to start to shape it. I'm making sure that it's nice and even, so if I feel a thick spot, notice that I'm still keeping it in my right hand. If your piece is collapsing on you and it's just not holding its shape, it's either too wet or it's gotten too thin. You may want to start over or let it firm up for a little bit. All right, so here's my shape. I'm going to take a little bit of water. As you can see, I've got some fine cracking happening on the rim, so I'm just taking a little bit of water. I'm not going overboard here. And then I can start shaping this. Sometimes if your piece does feel like it's hard to shape or it's just kind of not holding its shape, it means it's just a little too wet and it needs to firm up a bit. There's different stages of kind of moisture in the clay, and they have names, and we'll discuss that as we move along. But after this starts to dry, it becomes a stage called leather hard, where it starts to firm up and you can't pinch it anymore. And that's when we'll start adding our details on the outside. So right now I'm still going around and shaping it. Think about if you want an even rim or an uneven rim. This person went in afterward and cut into the piece, so you certainly can do that as well. I could shape it if I wanted to at this time, but I think I want to keep it more rounded. When you are done pinching, you do also want to go through and kind of compress the rim. So that can be done with your finger or your sponge, and all I'm doing is wetting the sponge and kind of wrapping it on the rim. You might notice a little sandiness coming out of the clay, especially when you wet it. That's called grog. Grog is clay that has been fired and put back into the clay. And what that does is it prevents the clay from shrinking too much when it gets fired because it has a lot of water in it. And it also makes it stronger. But it can be kind of unsightly if you add a lot of water to the clay. It starts to really come out and look rough. So you want to avoid doing too much water. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with my shape. It is quite wet. This needs to firm up a little bit. So I'm going to let it firm up, and then I'm going to add some attachments. Okay, and I might do a little bit of smoothing. You will notice that you can see some of my fingerprints. I actually like that because it kind of lets you know that it was handmade, and also there is a uniformity to the fingerprints. You know, if you've got big gashes in the piece, it's a little bit different. So feel free to allow your fingerprints to stay. It allows the person touching it to kind of connect to the person who made it, which is pretty cool. And start thinking about, what do you want to add to this?